I remember standing on the hill, looking back at the synagogue as it was just kind of in the fading into the distance. I had been there in that building with my family just earlier that day. We had all been rounded up. All the Jews in my little town had been rounded up after the Nazis invaded Poland. We were brought in together, all into the synagogue to hear them harangue us and tell their lies and their stories of, their crazy Jewish conspiracy theories. I wasn't built to withstand that sort of humiliation. My parents understood this. My parents always supported me. My parents always had understood that this was not my path. They brought me and my brother to the back of the synagogue. They found a little window for us to crawl out of and escape. They told me, take your little brother and run. Just get out. And we did. But before we left the city, I turned to look back to see the synagogue, to see the window we had just crawled out of, tiny spot of orange light, and the blurry faces that I assumed were my parents, hoped were my parents. And that was my last time I saw them, the last time I saw my family. I took my little brother and left him with my grandparents, but I needed to keep going. I didn't feel safe in Poland, and I wanted to go someplace I could be free, someplace I could resist, someplace I could fight. And so I went to Vilna. Um, in Vilna, I found a community in the ghetto, with other Jewish activists, with other Jewish partisans, people like me, people who had come, young people who had come from families who were supportive, families who had made sure they were educated. In Vilna, I met Roska, who came to be my greatest friend, my girlfriend, someone I was close to for the rest of my life. I met Abba Kovner, uh, and many others who were like me, looking for a way to fight and looking for a way to resist. 8 months after the invasion of Poland, the Nazis showed up in Lithuania. They showed up in Vilna, and I had to decide: was I gonna run away again, or was I gonna stay and fight? Um, this time I was gonna stay. This time I had my community. This time I had my calling, and I knew that I could, from here, I could make a difference. From here, I could work and change something. I could have an impact. It was sometime later that things got worse. They kept getting worse in the ghetto. People were taken out from Vilna, and we didn't know where they were taken to. All we knew was that they never came back. Um, People would get called up, people would get rounded up, people would be taken away, and we'd never get a letter, we'd never get any information about them. There were some hopeful among us who thought they were going to a labor camp, maybe that they were being taken to resettle somewhere, but I think that was a minority view. Most of us had no such optimistic apprehensions. We thought the worst. And then one day, this child, this 12-year-old, came crawling out of the forest. She wasn't, had no clothes, she was covered in mud, she was terrified. And she came to us, she came to the ghetto, she came to us and told us her story. She told us that she had been rounded up with her family, that she had been taken to the forest, and that they had been lined up at the edge of these pits, and that they'd all been shot. But the shot that was meant for her missed. She fell into the pit and had to climb out over the bodies of her family, make it into the forest, crawl out of the forest, and somehow get to us. As she was telling us, all I could do was look at her muddy, tiny little feet and think of all the steps that child had taken to get to us. There were people who didn't believe her, who said this was impossible, that this was a scared, traumatized child, that she didn't know what she was talking about. I believed her. A lot of us believed her. It made sense. It fit with everything we'd been dreading. It fit with everything we knew. And that was when I determined that I needed to make an impact, that I needed to do something to make a change. So I have a particular talent for being very detail oriented. I was very good at memorizing information. I had developed a complete sense of the train schedules of trains coming in and out of Vilna. I knew when they were coming, I knew where they were coming from, I knew how what was carried on them. These train schedules, like we got this information from various sources, but I was able to collate it and watch the trains, watch them coming, and I knew when a train full of Nazis was going to be coming on a particular route. And I knew that route. It went through the forest. There was a particular location that was incredibly vulnerable. And I knew that if we set a bomb at that location when the train came, if we got our timing right, we could disrupt the entire transport, the troop transport. So I came to Abba with this plan. He got me in touch with a bomb maker, and we were grateful to have somebody with these skills. And he gave me this heavy, greasy package. We knew what night we needed to go and do this. So I gathered a small group of us, and that night we needed to get out of the ghetto, get into the, without being seen, without being stopped. We need to get out of the ghetto and get into the forest. And so we went by the sewers. I travel by the sewers a lot. This was another one of my projects. I memorized the whole sewer map throughout Vilna. I could get through the city and I could get to the edge of the city very easily because I knew which route to take underground in the sewer. It was not pleasant, but nothing was pleasant in the ghetto. Nothing was pleasant at that time. So we climbed down into the sewer. We crawled through all of these tunnels. I was clutching this heavy package. And eventually we made it to where I knew we could get out. So we climbed up the ladder and we got out into just outside the city. It was dark, no one saw us, no one stopped us. We went into through the forest to find this track. Then stayed in the darkness. We couldn't risk being seen, but it was dangerous to walk where there was no path. So we were slow, we were steady, and we made it to the location that we had scouted out before. I went and I placed the bomb exactly where I knew it needed to be, and then we melted back into the forest. We didn't leave because we needed to see that it worked. We needed to be there to see what happened. And just as planned, just as the schedule had said, transport train came. The bomb went off. It was so bright. It was like daylight for a moment in the forest. We could see everything. And then there were screams, there were shots, and we made our way back. We got out of there. We had to be quick, but we couldn't be seen. So we had to go into the darkness. We had to go back into kind of the forest. And we had to get there before sunrise. So we were as efficient as we could be. We made it back to the city, we made it into the sewer, we made it back into the ghetto. And with all that came next, though we couldn't celebrate, we couldn't take credit, that moment, that brightness, that light, knowing that those Nazis wouldn't be killing anyone, knowing that our people were safe from them, those Nazis, that I carried with me. That was in my heart. When I thought of that child, when I thought of all who he'd lost, here were some people who couldn't kill anymore.